Welcome, everybody. Hi, my name is Carrie Cardozo. I am a high school intern for Rise with Angela Rose, LLC, and I want to give an apology from Angela. Unfortunately, she cannot be here today. She would absolutely love to, but a family emergency did get in the way. So we're going to start today, and we have an incredible panel of speakers. We have counselors, we have therapists, we have clinical experts, and I'm just so excited to be able to introduce everybody to you. But I just want to start off by saying something a little bit about teen mental health. Now, when you hear the words teen mental health, you oftentimes might think of statistics, headlines, or social media. But behind every number is a real person, a classmate, a friend, or a sibling. Sometimes even ourselves. We are living in a time where so many young people are carrying invisible burdens: anxiety, depression, loneliness, bullying, trauma. The pressure to be okay in today's world can oftentimes feel overwhelming. That's why today's conversation matters so much. Mental health is not just a topic, it's our lives, our relationships, our futures, and our ability to thrive. As a high school student, this is something that means a great deal to me. I've learned that taking care of your mental health is just as important, if not more important, than just as important as taking care of our physical health. Life can move so fast, and it's easy to be overwhelmed by everything that happens around us. But we all deserve the moment and the ability to pause, breathe, and ask for help when we need it. And also to learn healthy ways to navigate life's challenges. Today, I have the absolute privilege of introducing you all to some incredible women, each of who bring a unique perspective on healing, resilience, and hope. Together, they help us better understand the science of healing, the importance of emotional well-being, and the many paths that can help through health and recovery. Most importantly, I hope if everyone can leave today's conference with one message, it is that you are not alone. There is help, healing is possible, and whether it's talking to a trusted friend, a family member, a teacher, a counselor, or a mental health professional, reaching out is one of the bravest things that you can do. Asking for help is never a sign of weakness, it is a sign of courage. Today we're going to be talking about the stigma surrounding mental health, creating conversations that matter, and reminding every teen that they are seen, they are valued, and their story is being written. Thank you all for being here today, whether it's in person or online. We appreciate all that you do for mental health, and we're glad that you get to be a part of something like this. Together, let's learn, grow, and discover how we can all rise and thrive. Thank you. I would first like to introduce everybody to Dr. Kylan Bob. She is a licensed clinical psychologist who has worked with adults, children, and adolescents who have experienced trauma, family and peer conflict, depression, anxiety, personality disorders, and chronic mental conditions. For children and adolescents, she utilizes various cognitive and behavioral approaches to help them overcome family and peer conflicts and behavioral issues.
Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Michelle Satoris. Dr. Satoris is a physician dedicated to supporting teen mental health through comprehensive, whole-person approach, using evidence-based practices with focus on mental, emotional, and physical well-being. She helps young people better understand the connection between their overall health and their ability to thrive. They are both with Inner Peace Psychological Care and are passionate about breaking the stigma of mental health.
Thank you both. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay. Thank you both for the introductions. That was really great. I'm Dr. Bob. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist.
Oh, yeah. And I'm Dr. Michelle Satoris. I'm also a licensed clinical psychologist, and we are both partner in our practice.
Yes. So we're owners of Inner Peace Psychological Care. We're out in Schaumburg, Illinois, which is, well, for those online, we're actually 10 minutes away from this location. We do individual therapy, family counseling, parent training. We also do psychological testing and neuropsychological testing. And today we wanted to talk about stigma and how challenging it could be to even get to the therapist door. Because oftentimes when I figure we'll have like a conversation rather than a lecture or a presentation. But I think, I'm hoping with Dr. Satoris, we could have a conversation on what it's like on our side, just to help like normalize it and make it less scary if you decide to go see a therapist. So as psychologists, we do not only psych testing and neuropsych testing, we also see people for therapy. And oftentimes when I see teens, there's a little bit of nervousness, right? Like even for adults too, it's not just adolescents or children. Even with older adults, there's this anxiety and worry about what is it going to be like when I get there? How uncomfortable is it going to be when I have to share and tell them all the things that are bothering me? What do I say? How do I start? Are they going to judge me? Are they going to tell my parents about all the stuff that I'm going to tell them? So hopefully with our conversation today, we could shed some light on that.
Yeah, and also find that, when I see my teens in therapy, either they were pushed by their parents to come into therapy, or that they had experienced a significant, more critical event that they are in session. And hopefully with our discussion, I like to, kind of demystify that myth that you only need to be in therapy when you are in a crisis. Right? I think the most important thing is that we want to make sure that everyone, including teens, that they take good care of their mental health. Yes.
So when, let's say hypothetically, your parents are like, I think you should go. I think it'll be really helpful. Or maybe you yourself have advocated for yourself, like, I'm ready to go see a therapist. We would go, generally we'll like meet in a room. Hopefully it's warm and friendly and kind. There's some paperwork that your parents will have to fill out. But there's, as a adolescent, you'll fill out some part 2. And when you meet with a therapist, this is how I generally structure it, but every therapist is a little bit different. So I would have you and your parents come in, or your caregiver or your guardian, whoever you decide would be a safe person to come in with you. And we'll have a conversation for you to get to know me to get to know you. It's an opportunity for you to ask questions. And then at some point, I'm going to say, hey, do you want to talk one-on-one together? And then I might swap later and talk one-on-one with your parents, just so, there's a little bit more freedom and comfortability. Like maybe there's some things you're not ready to share in front of your parents, and maybe your parents might have some concern. When I say parents, please realize I meant interchangeably with guardian and caregiver. Maybe your caregiver might have some concerns too. So then there's opportunity for you to speak freely. The other thing that I often make sure to say in front of both of them, in front of everybody, is that the adolescent is my patient. So we have a relationship and we're connected in that way. And there's things that we're going to keep within ourselves that's within between the both of us and the 4 walls. Of course, there's some things that we might have to share, like exceptions, like if you're thinking about hurting yourself or hurting others, there's major destruction of property. Those are times where I might have to share or break confidentiality, but most of the time it's between us. And it's a safe place for you to share your thoughts and your feelings without fear of judgment or without fear of me going to tell your parents or caregiver. And then with the parents, I usually ask them to respect that. This is a place for them to be safe. So there's some things that I won't be able to share or disclose, but it's not meant to create a divide or anything, but it is meant to create a sense of safety for them. But also in therapy, once we build that relationship, I might say, you know what, I think this might be helpful if we let somebody, like an adult in your life, know. But we'll talk about it. We'll say, do you feel comfortable? How do you want to talk about it? Should I talk about it? Do you want to? I'll be there. Like, let's figure this out together. What is your concern? And work your way through it. So hopefully we build a place that feels comfortable and safe.
Yeah, I think more or less my approach is pretty similar. I think one thing that I definitely see is that often, my teens feels like they need to know what to say in their first session. Just to make it clear, you don't really need to prepare for your first session or even any session at times. You know, the most bravest things that you can do is just to, and the most scariest thing is that first session, just to come in, right? And we mostly will do the work, right? So if you don't feel comfortable, then we're just going to work on how to make you feel comfortable, right? If that's the goal of the first session, that may just be what we do, right? Because ultimately, it's the relationship that we want to build in, right? We want to make sure that the trust is there in order to make, you know, a lot of changes in your life. But if you're not ready, that's okay. We'll just sit there and we'll just explore more, you know, on our relationship.
I want to highlight that the relationship part is so important. And, you know, as with any relationship, there's going to be some people that you might not gel with. And that's okay. You know, there might be a therapist that you're like, I'm not quite sure if I'm feeling it with this person, or we're like not vibing correctly. That's okay. You know, I definitely suggest giving it a handful of sessions because, you know, sometimes the first one, even the therapist gets nervous too. Just so you all know, we get nervous too. Like, oh my gosh, what? Like me too. Yeah, like we want it to go well. We wanted to create a safe. We don't want to scare even just the therapy process. And we recognize that maybe we may not be the best fit because of personality. Or maybe I'm too quiet, or maybe I'm too bubbly, or maybe I'm not quite. Maybe it's just out of my scope of practice or something like that. So it's okay to therapist shop, but I do recommend giving it a handful of sessions, maybe 4 sessions, or give it a month, you know, give it a try. Maybe it takes a little bit for the therapist to warm up too, and because they need to get to know you. You know, they need to know like what you like, what you prefer, and it's hard to do that in the first like 15 minutes or so.
To go on that, but certainly it's not your responsibility to make your therapist feel comfortable. And so, yeah, we are human too. And, you know, as a new relationship, we're just going to learn about each other. But ultimately, too, it takes two, right? I mean, we are there and we're present, but we also need you to share more of you, right? To the best of your capacity. I'm sure like that first 4 session, it may just take a while to really feel more comfortable. But the more information we have, the better we can really help support you. And I think that's the one thing is that maybe a lot of our teens think that therapy means that therapists will give you all of these advices. It doesn't work that way, right? Because we are there to know more of you, to understand you, to listen to you. But ultimately, what we do, we just provide information and help you make a decision that's best for yourself. Right? And so we're not there to tell you what to do. We're there to just walk alongside of you.
I think that's an interesting like point. What do you expect when, okay, now we have a relationship. How do you know this is working, right? So most therapists have something called outcome measures. There's ways that we can measure like your mood, and like they're not inject like needles or anything like that. They're generally questionnaires so we could keep track of how well you're doing. And we also set goals in therapy to see what that looks like. Like, what do you want to get out of therapy? Are you hoping to make this relationship stronger with your parents or caregivers or with your friends? Are you hoping to learn how to control your emotions a little bit better? There's something that was bothering you, you want to work through it. So we'll talk about what you want to get out of therapy. But there is ways that we get there. So one, yes, we talk about it. We help you understand your experience of it. But then we also say, hey, you know, there's some ideas out there like coping skills, right? Like coping skills are really helpful. I think many people are pretty familiar with some of them. We'll teach them, but also we'll say, you know, we'll hopefully normalize some of the experience. And it does feel kind of lonely when you think you're the only one going through something. But we could say like, you know what, this is typically what we see and what we could do to help with supporting that. And hopefully that will help with managing or dealing with whatever that you're going through. Anything else? Yeah. Anything else that you want to add?
Oh, it's just that every therapist have definitely very different style of conducting the session. Of course, not all will just do talk therapy. You know, sometimes we use again art. Sometimes we do like a lot of like this different strategy, role playing, anything that works well for you. I do have some teens coming in and say like, I don't want to do any homework again, right? That's, that's okay too. We're not going to give you a bunch of homework on top of your already, I'm sure a lot of like school expectation. But we certainly want you to learn some skills, right? And so we work, of course, we will look into what styles that may work best for you, and we'll work on that. But ultimately, it's just, again, setting that goals. What do you want out of therapy? Because therapy, although it opens up to this opportunity to connect with someone that is outside of your maybe social circle or family, but also a space to really work on your growth. So if therapy is really not benefiting you anymore, we would like to have another discussion and think about maybe setting a different goals.
Well, thank you guys so much. If you wouldn't mind, we have a couple of questions we would like to ask you guys. I could start off. So I have a question that we oftentimes, as a society, I think we talk about wanting to bring teen mental health to light. And what role do you think that schools or communities should be playing that they currently aren't, in order to sort of how you guys kind of explained today that therapy is open to everybody, not just those who have been through something traumatic. It can be for everybody. What do you think that schools, communities can do in order to really show that, hey, it's for everybody?
I do think that school have made a good progress in maybe learning more about mental health in general, but there's still a lot of work that still needs to be done. I think there's a misconception that learning is separate to mental health. In fact, they're very connected. If you are experiencing a lot of stress, if you're experiencing a significant event, to expect that you can learn, I think that's unrealistic. It's impossible. And so I think we need to push for more education and training for all staff to be able to identify students who are struggling, right? Because they are the one who spend maybe the most time with you in the classroom. Another point is access, right? To make sure that to prioritize access to all students. And so if the school feels that they are overwhelmed with the amount of students that they need to support, I think it's very important that they work with organization, practices outside of the school to refer student out to, or even to provide information for student and parents as well. Also providing just space for students to regulate and teaching those skills in school. Often it's just so hard to take a break to go to the restroom, right? Student needs more breaks in between, I think. 5 minutes to just regulate and de-stress, and then you can come back to your lessons again. There are just so many strategies that I think the school staff can benefit just by connecting with mental health professional. Will be able to provide more of that information.
That's an excellent answer. Yeah. I also want to add, systemically, I think we could do so much together nationally on how to support our schools, our teachers, the social workers in the schools, the school psychologists. There's such a shortage out there. And they're overwhelmed, as you were saying. So I think it's so important that systemically, whether it's the government or advocacy programs or lawyers, whoever, are lobbyists, to recognize that we need to do more. And there's so much room for all of that.
That was a great answer. Thank you so much for your insight. Now, moving on to another question. So I know that a lot of the times mental burnout and distress often gets mistaken for laziness and just not wanting to do something, especially from a parent or guardian's perspective. So from a clinical perspective, what are the most common signs of burnout or mental distress in teens that parents or friends often miss, and what can they do to help?
I think one of the first things I notice is how well the adolescent's sleeping and how well they're eating. And then are they withdrawing the things that they used to enjoy? Are they still doing it anymore? Maybe they used to love crocheting or reading or playing video games, and all of a sudden they're not interested in doing that. Their appetites have changed. Maybe they eat more or less. They're having trouble sleeping. They're staying up too late. They're sleeping in. They're tired throughout the day. I think that's when we start to see, okay, maybe there's something else that's going on. I know as an adult, I feel that burnout sometimes. Like, I'm always on the go. There's a lot of stuff that's happening, and I'm trying to juggle all these pieces. I think adolescents, because they're like not me, I look at them and I'm like, I imagine they'll be tired too. They have so much to do. They have school from like 8 to 3-ish, right? Hypothetically. I don't really know for sure. Every school schedule is a little bit different. And then they have to come home and do homework. And then there's expectations that they're going to do extracurriculars. And then they have to prepare for this test. And then they have to go to this sports game, but then also have a social life. And then also have to, think about what they're going to do for their future. And then as an adult, I'm already exhausted from a 9 to 5, right? So to think about all the things that an adolescent have to think about, and then me as an adult in my life, I feel that stress from my work, and then have to come home and cook and clean. And, I think there's value in recognizing and empathizing with each other's experience. So the signs that we look for, I would often go with the physical signs first, because it may be hard to say comfortably, I'm stressed, I'm burned out. Because who knows, maybe there's times where it felt like it wasn't heard, but the physical signs, you could tell pretty quickly that somebody is struggling.
I think that's a very good answer. I think it's important to know the teens' baseline, right? What's the typical, how they are typically are, versus what's going on. If you're seeing those changes, it means something. Right? I think it's worth exploring what really is going on. And our teens, if you're lucky, they will come to you, right? But I'm sure talking to adults is not like the first thing that you're thinking about. So even just checking in with them and just making sure that they are okay, allowing the space for them to come and speak to you, I think that's really beneficial.
That leads me to my last question, and it's just about what are some daily lifestyle choices and habits that we can make as teenagers that can hopefully help us in the future and just keep us with able to balance our mental, our social, our physical well-being? What are some common things you guys tell your patients?
I like that, what you shared, the word balance, right? I think there's a misconception that you can finally find the balance in your life. This is a lifelong process. I think until the day that we leave this earth, it's all about, checking in with ourselves and managing, different activities and trying to balance. I think the key word is to try your best. But obviously, if we're thinking about mental health, our mind and body, they are connected. And so if you feel that you are not able to control what's going on in your mind, focus on your body, right? Making sure that you are sleeping at the right amount of hours. I know that's really hard. Making sure that you're eating, nutritious meals. I know sometimes even with school and expectation, it's so hard to even eat, and snacks. But ultimately, what I always share with everyone, whether that's children, teens, adolescent, is imagine ourselves, we are a tree, and our routine is our roots. And so often when stressful things happen, right, we tend to get distracted. So when stressful things happen to us, what happened to us that we lost our routine, right? When we're feeling depressed, when we feel anxious, oh man, let me just sleep a little bit more, or I'm not going to brush my teeth, right? I'm not going to meet my friends. But the problem here is that when you don't care for your roots, if you don't consistently, choose to follow your routine, when stressful things happen, what happens if your roots are not strong enough, you will fall, right? So if there's just one thing that you can do when things are hard, is just continue to try to follow through with your routine.
I think that's a good one. I think that's a tough one because I think, as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that there's that whole balance thing. It's balance. And I recognize that how I felt 20 years ago is not how I feel today. And knowing that your values, your beliefs will shift, not change drastically. It might change drastically. But I think recognizing that there's always opportunity for development and growth, and the only constant is change, right? So like how I feel, the things that was important to me when I was an adolescent or a young adult is different than what I feel now. And I think sometimes recognizing that, it's okay that things do change and how do we adjust accordingly. But hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. And there's so many great skills out there. And I think that one of the huge thing about the biggest takeaway, I guess, would be like your mindset. And if you could approach every morning as like, okay, this is a new day. This is a new opportunity for us to seek something different, to experience life. Life can be really beautiful. It could be really terrible at times, but it could also be really beautiful is what you make out of it. And so if we dwell on the things that happened before, we use that as experience and knowledge, right? Like it can be informative. It could tell us how we might approach things, but it's a new day and there's an opportunity to try something different, or maybe build a relationship with someone that I could hopefully eventually learn to trust, and building a life that's worth living,
All right, thank you guys so much. We would next like to invite Delaney Henderson to the stage. Thank you guys so much. You guys are great. Hi, Delaney. How are you? I am doing well. So, Delaney, tell me a little bit about yourself, and also tell me how you've gotten involved in the field that you work in and how you got involved with Rise and Thrive.
So I wrote a little speech, essentially kind of summarizing just based off of everything that they were saying, because I think it's really important to bring up. So I'm going to read it, but bear with me because, I wrote it 10 minutes ago. But how I got involved with all of this, so my story, I was a 16-year-old kid and really felt like I was pretty naive to the world. I mean, I was pretty much your average teenager and didn't really, take classes seriously and mental health seriously. I didn't really, there was nothing traumatic that had happened in my life prior to that, so I wasn't really mentally prepared for anything to come about that I didn't recognize. As I was raised by really good parents and everything, so when I turned 16, I was sexually assaulted by two boys that went to my high school. But it was truthfully the aftermath of that impacted my life in ways that I didn't even realize still impact it to this day. I was relentlessly bullied online. I was harassed, ostracized, and really shamed because of what happened to me. And I didn't quite understand how much of an impact that harassment and that online bullying would affect my daily life. But it drastically did. And it really changed just the way that I saw myself and the way I spoke to other people, the way I trusted people most importantly, and especially therapists. That was a big one for me because I really felt like for a very long time that I didn't need therapy. I thought, I got this, I can handle this, and I was embarrassed about it. I was embarrassed to even talk about any of it. I felt really shamed and really, I had lost a lot of self-respect for myself, so I didn't want to keep continually talking about it with other people and strangers in my teenage brain that I felt were just going to tell me, it's going to be okay, pretty much. So I ended up actually going through about 15 different therapists before I found the right one. And, a lot of that was just I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to open up. I wasn't ready to talk about it. But I will be honest, the first moment that I met the right one and I did start opening up about it, my entire perspective over not only what happened to me, but how I was going to craft my future healing journey completely shifted and completely changed my life forever. I still go to a therapist and check in with her probably at least once a month, if not more, just when stuff's on my mind. And I think it's really important to get it out, especially when you don't fully understand something. I have a little piece that I wanted to read, but basically the biggest impact that one person had in my life told me this in a short summary, and I think it's important because I think it really puts things in perspective for us as teenagers and just the way that we view social media. I wrote, I think the biggest barrier that we face right now is in school in general and society is the fear of being judged, especially online. As teenagers especially, we all want to fit in, and admitting that you're struggling can feel like you're risking being seen as weak or different from everybody else. Social media can make that even harder because it looks like everyone else has everything together, but the reality is that so many teens and so many people are dealing with anxiety, stress, loneliness, and depression. They just don't realize that they're not alone because no one is talking about it enough. I think the more that we create safe places and safe spaces where people can be honest without fear of judgment, the easier it will become for others to speak up and ask for help when they need it. So my advice, honestly, to anyone that's going through any type of traumatic experience, literally any type of trauma or hardship, anything of that kind, if one therapist does not work, keep going, keep looking, and keep talking about it. Don't bottle it up. It's just like friendships. You're not friends with every single person that you meet. It just, sometimes your just personalities don't match, but that doesn't mean that you should just give up. It doesn't mean that, even that therapist is the wrong one. It might not be the right time for you. It's really important to meet and to seek help because ultimately, I think that was the biggest factor in my life that led me to start the beginning of my healing process that I didn't even realize I had not started yet. I thought, all before I found the right person to talk to, I had felt like I was healed. Like it was fine. Like it's been a few years, no problem. And then it started affecting my daily life in ways that I didn't really expect. And when I finally started opening up and talking about it, I realized that. And that's what really ultimately shaped the healing journey for me and led me to really strive and thrive afterwards, even to this day, truthfully speaking.
But I'm just wondering, because I know before you said that you thought, like you just were just saying, you thought you were healed. But before you started your journey with therapy, what was sort of the switch that made you realize, okay, like I do need to go to a therapist? Was it like your parents telling you? Did you come to that conclusion yourself?
I'll be honest with you, my parents would love if I'd go to a therapist every day. I mean, and I mean that as a teenager. My parents were they pushed so hard, and I'm not even saying that they were wrong. I just wasn't ready at the time, and I didn't even know that I wasn't ready. But it was a lot of influence from my parents because I have great parents who genuinely really wanted me to thrive, and it was really meeting and speaking to other survivors of sexual violence and other teenagers like myself that have been through similar experiences that had the therapist help them. And I did something called EMDR, which was a game changer for me. And I did that with a very amazing therapist. And that's really what that experience really opened my eyes to really seek out more therapy. And I mean that in every which way, because it really, I think once it's like a light switch, once you realize like it's okay to talk about your experiences, I think that's what did it for me. But truthfully, to answer your question in a short summary, it was a self decision. I had to consciously make the decision that I need to get help. I want to get help, and I want to thrive. I don't want to let my traumatic experience define me. I want to take it, heal from it, and move and rise and thrive from it so that it doesn't impact the rest of my life.
And I just want to say that at Rise and Thrive, we believe that healing is a process and that our greatest challenges do not have to define our future. We see this today through so many incredible women that are here today. And Delaney truly embodies that message, and she's here today to remind every single teenager, every parent, every educator and a community member that even in life's darkest moments, that there is always hope, there is always help, and there is always the opportunity to grow stronger. And we look at her today, and you've achieved so much since, of course, I mean, you grow since you're 16, but you also have grown mentally stronger, emotionally stronger, I'm assuming, of course you have.
I think it's a long journey for anyone to seek help, get help, and then take those resources and lessons and implement them into your daily life are important. My life obviously has changed a lot since what happened to me happened, but it still impacts me frequently, but it's not always negative. Sometimes it'll be something that pops up that's a trigger or something, and I really, because of therapy, because I've talked through it, because I've sought out the resources and met other people that shared similar experiences, I'm able to put that and define it for what it is, not let it impact me emotionally. I can see things now from a very different perspective than I used to, and I think that's what's allowed me to kind of expand my mind and realize that it doesn't have to define the rest of your life, really.
Thank you so much, Delaney. We appreciate you coming on here and giving us your perspective. And our next speaker actually Our next speaker reminds us that healing does not always have to start with words. It can begin with movement. Ariel Rabot is a clinical professional counselor and board certified dance movement therapist who has dedicated her career to helping people reconnect with themselves through the power of movement. Drawing from both science and compassion, she helps individuals process trauma, regulate their nervous system, and build resilience in ways that go much beyond traditional talk therapy. Her work is rooted in the understanding that trauma isn't just stored in our memories, it can also be held in our bodies. Through intentional movement, breath, and body awareness, healing becomes more than something we think about, it becomes something that we experience. Today, Ariel will introduce us into the powerful science behind dance and movement as tools for healing, emotional regulation, and post-traumatic growth. Whether you've ever considered yourself a dancer or not, we invite you to approach this experience with an open mind and willingness to connect with yourself in a different and new way. Please join me in giving a warm Rise and Thrive welcome to Ariel Rabot.
Hey. Thank you. That was a great introduction. I feel like you're talking about someone else. So before we talk about dance movement therapy, I'd like to begin with a question for both people here in the room, but also online. How many of you have either worked with a teenager or have had this experience themselves where, they're like, okay, when I'm anxious, I'm going to take deep breaths and I'm going to think, okay, this is just a false alarm. I got this. I'm not going to let this make me anxious. But you get to the moment and you're like, ah! Right? And all the skills go out the window. Yeah, everybody. So most clinicians, teachers, teens have had this experience, right? You know the coping skills, you know you should breathe, you know the thoughts are irrational, you know you're relatively safe, but the body responds as if the danger is still there. This disconnect really highlights one of the greatest limitations of relying solely on cognitive or thought-based interventions. Insight does not automatically produce regulation. And when I say regulation, what I'm talking about is our ability to find inner okayness, right? Regulation doesn't mean like, oh yes, I'm so zen. It's just like, okay, I'm okay, you're okay, the world is relatively okay, Okay, so let's just get that out of the way. Trauma, chronic stress, mental illness, even just simple emotional experiences are stored not only in thoughts, but in our body. They are encoded in our nervous system. And today I really want to explore how our body is central to adolescent mental health and how dance movement therapy offers a neurobiologically informed pathway towards regulation, connection, and healing. Why the body? Well, the body remembers. Mental health treatment has historically emphasized cognition, from cognitive behavioral therapy to psychodynamics to psychoanalysis. And we ask clients to identify kind of thoughts and how they might be distorted, how to challenge them, how to gain insight. And these are amazing interventions and definitely essential part of treatment. However, neuroscience has demonstrated that our emotional experiences are deeply embodied. When a teenager experiences anxiety, shame, rejection, or trauma, this experience is accompanied by measurable physiological changes, right? How many times do you notice your heart rate start to increase? Maybe your breathing becomes more shallow, or you hold your breath. Your muscles start to tighten. Maybe your vision narrows. The autonomic nervous system shifts into survival mode, right? Often known as fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. We'll come to that a little later. In these moments, the prefrontal cortex, or what I like to call the thinking brain, the area responsible for reasoning, planning, impulse control, mood regulation, literally starts to go offline, and we don't have access to the ability to think. Our back brain, our feeling, our emotional brain takes over and is there to say, you gotta survive, and we react. So when we don't have access to our thinking brain, from my perspective, it's a little hard to use thinking tools. But that's just me. And so the body often reacts before the mind even has an opportunity to think. So the adolescent brain, on top of everything, is going through tremendous change, right? The limbic system, responsible for emotion and reward, develops earlier than the prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain, which continues maturing well into the mid-20s. This developmental imbalance helps explain why teenagers often experience emotions with a lot of intensity, because they're still acquiring these neural pathways or networks that will actually help lead to regulation, right? So at the same time, adolescence is a period where we're figuring out who we are, increasing independence, we have heightened sensitivity to peer relationships, right? Like social rejection, literally, if you measure it, activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. Not only do you feel it emotionally, you feel it physically, right? And for adolescents, like any human being, belonging is not simply a social preference. It is a neurobiological need. So how does trauma change the nervous system? And when I say trauma, I'm talking about trauma on a scale like from small t to big T. It could be small, repeated moments of being told, oh, you're not feeling that, or just you're too much right now, or you're overdramatic, to, a date rape, to different types of abuse, to being bullied online. All these different things can fall under trauma. We know that the event actually isn't as important as we initially thought it was. It's how it impacts the person, right? So trauma is often misunderstood as that event itself, right? But trauma is not defined solely by what happens. in the moment, right? Trauma is what happens with the nervous system when there's an overwhelming experience that exceeds our capacity to cope, right? So again, abuse, neglect, bullying, racism, discrimination, emotional invalidation, the nervous system adapts to survive. For adolescents whose brains are still developing, repeated activation of survival responses can influence emotional regulation, executive functioning, relationships, learning, as we mentioned early, and identity development. These adaptations, though, I really want to emphasize, are not pathology. These are brilliant survival strategies. The challenge is that when they first develop, they can be really helpful in terms of, quote, survival, yet then they start to interfere with day-to-day life. And that's where the therapy can really come in. So, as we said, right, when we're experiencing chronic stress, big emotions, access to that thinking brain is limited. And so, also, I don't know about you, but like when I was a teen, I didn't really know much about feelings or emotions. It's not like, you know, your parents sit you down and be like, okay, so when you feel this is anxiety and this is what you do, said no parent ever, at least, 20, 30 years ago. And honestly, I have this experience, even as a therapist who's done too many years of therapy to count, is that sometimes there's just not words, right? You have this visceral experience, and someone says, well, could you tell me what that is like? And you just sit there and you're like, eh. And I think especially as an adolescent, right? Like sometimes there's just not words. And so instead of asking like, oh, tell me how your anxiety feels, dance movement therapy invites you to notice where anxiety may live in your body. How much space does it take up? Or if relative safety, and I use relative safety because I don't think there's any guaranteed safety. But relative safety had a movement. What might it look like? And to have that embodied experience, that reshapes our neural networks as well. So these questions invite curiosity, both cognitive and embodied awareness. And over time, with what we call interoception, which is awareness of what's going on inside, we became able to recognize cues of activation of our nervous system more and more readily. And so we're able to kind of catch ourselves before we're at this like place of no longer having access to the thinking brain, so that we can actually regulate our body and then apply some of those cognitive skills. So for me, I'm actually trained in cognitive behavioral therapy and in dance movement therapy. I have 2 master's degrees, and I actually integrate the 2 because there is value in all of the above. Movement changes the brain. So, my true love is dance movement therapy. I've been a mover since I was a child. I keep on hearing stories as I get older. Your parents tell you more of how, in like grade school, I was the one standing behind the desk before we were allowed to do things. So yeah, that's me. So dance movement therapy, according to the American Dance Therapy Association, is the psychotherapeutic use of movement to promote emotional, cognitive, social, and physical integration. It's an evidence-based mental health profession practiced by master-level clinicians, right? So these are trained master-level clinicians that are trained in psychotherapy, human development, movement observation, and embodied intervention. We are not solely dancers, and we're not just using dance as a means of expression. And despite its name, dance movement therapy is not about performance or learning choreography. It can be at times. You don't need to know how to dance. You don't need to feel comfortable dancing. it's really often about using our bodies to make subtle shifts in posture. Tune into breath, weight, rhythm, gesture, and body awareness. Movement becomes another language through which we can observe, express, regulate, and reorganize our emotional experiences. And movement, we know, changes the brain. Intentional movement influences multiple systems involved in emotional regulation, including autonomic nervous system regulation, interoceptive or internal awareness, proprioceptive feedback, which is where our limbs are in space, emotional processing, executive functioning, and so on. A lot of the rhythmic movement, synchronized breathing, intentional grounding activates neural pathways associated with safety and regulation. At the end of the day, the way that I work is I break most emotions down into what makes you feel more safe, what makes things feel more dangerous and dysregulated, and how do we help you feel safe in your body and your mind, right? So the benefit of doing things in a more embodied way is that healing no longer is just understood intellectually. It becomes experience. And I don't know about you, but in my experience as an adult of working with teenagers, unless you feel it, they ain't gonna buy it. So, just a different way of kind of getting buy-in. So healing through connection. Earlier, Carrie asked about, what is lacking? What is lacking? And I think that's one of the main things is connection. Especially as adolescents, we know that there is a loneliness epidemic. Social media is there, and it's a false sense of connection. When we connect via a screen, our body does not register that in the same way as interpersonal interactions. And healing rarely happens in isolation. If you think about emotions, if you think about trauma, most of them, not all, right? Discord happens between people, right? So an infant, you think about a baby, right? Their nervous system is developed through the caregiver's body. Teenagers continue to rely on safe relationships or safe enough relationships to help them regulate, even as independence increases, right? Dance movement therapy intentionally incorporates principles of attunement through movement. We use mirroring, rhythmic synchrony, shared movement, and nonverbal attunement in order to create a sense of safety. Healing has to happen, or often is better happening in a relationship. Sorry, words. So, one of the greatest protective factors for adolescent mental health is belonging. Right? Community does not eliminate adversity. However, community changes how adversity is experienced. Right? When young people experience authentic acceptance, emotional safety, and opportunities for shared regulation, resilience increases. Whether healing occurs in families, schools, therapy groups, athletic teams, faith communities, or peer relationships, connection remains one of the most powerful interventions available. And dance movement therapy at its origins was really created for groups and is often utilizing groups because movement can naturally foster synchrony, empathy, cooperation, and mutual support. And we'll do a little experiential in a few moments. Simply moving together can strengthen feelings of belonging and decrease social isolation. In a time when loneliness among adolescents continues to rise, opportunities for embodied connection become increasingly important. All right, so just to kind of give a little bit of the science, because unfortunately, dance movement therapy often isn't viewed as an evidence-based treatment when it really is. The growing research, especially trauma research, really supports that dance movement therapy is associated with considerable reductions in anxiety, depression, trauma symptoms, and psychological distress while improving emotional regulation, interpersonal functioning, resilience, and quality of life. Emerging neuroscience continues supporting interventions that integrate cognitive, emotional, relational, and somatic processes rather than treating these symptoms as separate. For many adolescents, healing requires more than insight. It requires experience of safety, connection, movement, and regulation that can be felt, not simply understood. All right. So, you can stay seated, you can stand, maybe you need to stand after sitting for a while here. But if it feels okay to you, and everything is always optional, if you're sitting, I'll invite you to notice, where's your body making contact with your chair? Or if you're standing, can you feel your feet on the floor? There's nothing changes. You don't have to change anything. I just want you to notice. If it feels relevant or safe enough to have a soft gaze down or even close your eyes, I invite you to do that. And then maybe you notice the quality, the characteristics of your breath. Is it shallow or deep? Are you breathing into your upper chest or torso? Are you breathing into your belly or your back? Again, nothing to change, just noticing. And then maybe noticing your muscles. Are there areas that are tense? Are there areas that are loose? Are there areas that you're like, I don't know what you're talking about and I can't feel a damn thing? That's great too. If you're sitting, if you're standing, are you hunched over? Are you sitting up tall? If your eyes are open, where does your gaze naturally rest? From here, this is going to be a snapshot. I want you to take like a mental picture of where you are right now and what it feels like to be in your body. This is your baseline. Again, if it feels okay for you, I'll invite you to create a posture that represents stress or protection. So, for example, when I think of stress, I think of this. What is your stress posture or protection, right? Protection might be more like. So go ahead and take on that posture, even just for 15 seconds. And then from there, I want you to move a millimeter towards comfort. Can you move another millimeter towards comfort? Maybe 2 millimeters towards comfort. Notice what happens to your breathing, your energy, your ability to notice other people as you move from a place of stress or protection to a place of comfort. And then see if you can come back to a place that feels comfortable enough for you, one in which you can be. So just to disclose, like, none of these are bad postures, right? They're brilliant adaptations that we have developed over centuries. It is our nervous system protecting us and informing us, giving us movement around survival. If any of you want to nerd out later, you should look into like polyvagal theory, just saying. Now, does anybody maybe here in the audience would be willing to maybe share what that experience was like?
All right, we got to take her.
Oh, yes. Please come up.
Hi. So what I noticed in myself when you told us to get into that posture of anxiety, I noticed my muscles tensing. I noticed my eyes clenching shut. And as you were saying, find just a millimeter of comfort, the very first thing I did is I felt my shoulders drop. I stayed in that space, but my shoulders dropped. And that tiny little movement was just enough to allow me to sit up, to allow my eyes to soften even as they were closed. And I started to feel my breath starting to regulate. That was really impressive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Nope. All right. All right, now I want to give you a little bit of experience, and so I've never done this with mixed audience and online, so bear with me. If it's a flop, but we'll go for it anyways. You got to be vulnerable, right? So in dance movement therapy, we use mirroring as a way of embodied attunement. And so, yes, they can see me. I was like, I don't know where I should be. So I'm going to do a movement, and I'll invite you, after I'm done with the movement, I'll do it again, so you know what it is, to mirror. So if you're on a screen, maybe you can put change it so you can see other people. I don't know how all this stuff works, so if it doesn't do that, just ignore me. But I'm just going to do this. Again, if it resonates, if it feels okay to you, to do it with me. And maybe we do it one more time, and for those, if you're in a room with someone, maybe do it as you look around. Maybe someone's sitting next to you or behind you. I see a lot of smiles in my audience. What are the smiles about? Would anybody be willing to share? Oh, yes.
It was kind of interesting doing it in a room with people because it felt like I was almost saying hi to them.
Yes. Yes.
And just seeing everyone like looking a little bit more relaxed was honestly a little interesting too.
We created connection. So even though we were maybe in a room of people that we haven't met before, I was able to make eye contact, to see, to smile, and to connect even for a brief moment. That can be the power of connection and dance movement therapy.
So, again, healing from trauma, healing from mental illness is not simply about remembering the story, about talking about what happened to us or the stressors in our lives. It's about helping the body discover that it has this inherent wisdom to heal, and that it no longer has to live as though the danger is still present. Dance movement therapy really offers those opportunities for the nervous system to experience safety, connection, flexibility, and choice, not through words alone, but through this embodied experience. Even a small shift of movement, as you may have experienced, can be the beginning, of a different story. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that different sort of perspective on therapy. So today we've learned about talk therapy, dance therapy, and I'm excited now to have a little Q&A panel. I would like to invite Ariel, Delaney, and Adriana to come have a seat up here while we have our little panel. All right, so I've compiled a couple questions for each one of you guys. So I'll start off with just an individual question for each one of you, and then just sort of like one question for all of you. So I'd like to start off with Adriana. And Adriana, you are in high school, correct? Yes, you are in high school and you're an advocate for sexual assault. And I want to know what made you want to become an activist and help to change the world. And I believe you started in junior high. Can you tell me us a little bit about that and how maybe starting at like a younger age has sort of changed who you are, the things you believe in?
Well, I started my journey for advocating for sexual assault awareness in 8th grade when I realized there was this heavy silence that needed to be broken. It just felt like there were many things going on in the world, that there were several important issues that weren't being talked about enough, and I definitely felt that sexual violence was one of them. And also, it was just my goal to not only speak up about these issues and bring attention to them, but inspire the other people around me to speak up about things that they care about. And I think it's very easy for society to write off us teenagers as a problem, but we're not. We're the solution.
That's absolutely incredible. I think that deserves a round of applause just for that. That is great. Thank you so much for that insight. And I'm so impressed that you were able to come to that because, as middle schoolers, there's a lot going on in your mind that's sometimes not about the real problems in the world. I mean, well, when I was in middle school, I was thinking about how much like Robux I can convince my parents to buy. So the fact that you were able to have such deep and important thoughts at such a young age really says a lot about the type of person you are and hopefully the type of person that you're going to become. So I'm very, very impressed. Yeah, of course. And then Delaney, as a public speaker and an activist, you amplify teenage voices. And what do you think the biggest barrier is what keeps teens from speaking openly about their mental health with each other? Because, I mean, sometimes maybe it's maybe easy for some teenagers to go to their friends. It might be easier for some teenagers to go to their parents. But really, when you have that sort of friend-and-friend connection, you guys are the same age, same classes in school, you guys are dealing with lots of the same problems, but sometimes there's a barrier between teenagers. So what would you say the biggest barrier is for that?
Truthfully, I think it's pretty simple. I think biggest thing would be fear of rejection, fear of judgment. I think just speaking about something as serious as mental health oftentimes is kind of like taboo in a way. A lot of people don't want to bring it up or bring attention to something that they think nobody else is noticing that they're struggling with because they're afraid to talk about it. And we've come a long way as a society just to open up and start having these conversations. But I think there's still a very big stigma around discussing the intricacy and the details behind why you're feeling the way you're feeling, or why there's something that's, going on in your life that you don't feel comfortable enough to talk about with somebody else. I think everybody should always have that one person, whoever it is, whether it's a parent, friend, teacher, therapist, to really feel comfortable enough to open up and start these conversations, because truthfully, it takes one person who responds the right way in any type of situation when you're confiding in them. It takes one person to change the trajectory of, the healing journey for every single person. So I think it's really important to not only open up and start speaking about it, but also give off the perception that you are the type of person who will be good at receiving the information when others disclose it to you. I think it's the allies and the friends and the sisters and the brothers and, you know, the peers that are around you that make the biggest impact in your life. And if we can all, as a society, learn how to respond appropriately when these issues and these topics are brought up, I think that's really, truthfully, at the end of the day, what's going to eradicate the judgment and eradicate the rejection, fear aspect of the entire thing, and really open up the conversations around mental health.
Sorry, I just want to say something. I think one of the other things is shame. Shame immobilizes. And you were saying the fear of rejection and things like that. But we all have emotions. Like, we are biologically wired to have emotions. And yet we don't we don't talk about the fact that, like, oh, you have emotions, I have emotions, they have emotions. And literally, mental health is about talking about emotions that we all have. And I think the shame and this fear of rejection really gets in the way of, like, I want to fit in, because we all, even as adults, even as kids, we want to fit in. But when we really break it down and just realize, like, we're just talking about feelings, and we all have the same damn feelings. Sorry. Earmuffs. We are human, and we all have these experiences. They're just look different or sound a little different, but fundamentally it's the same thing. And so if we can just get over this hurdle of the fear of being different, which we're really not, then that's the key.
Wow, thank you both for that insight. And then I have one more question for you, Ariel, which is, why is it important to recognize the connection between the mind and the body when addressing mental health? We know that you're a big dance advocacy, which I think is amazing. And I'm definitely so interested in that, because I feel like it's so common nowadays to just hear about talk therapy, but the fact that you bring something so different to the table is so exciting. I'm in such awe of that. But what would you say the importance between the connection between the mind and body is?
So my funny part wants to be like, is your head attached to your body? Because I don't think you can separate the two. And what we know, and I'm sure you can all attest to this, is when you have, I'm going to use the word feelings and not emotions, but intentionally. When you have a feeling, you feel it in your body. Feelings are literally a group of body-based sensations that we as human beings have given a label to. Feelings are simply information that our nervous system, that's like our radar scanning the environment for danger and safety, emotions are information about what is happening outside of us and what is happening inside of us, and simply a call to action. And so, I mean, again, short of separating these, which I don't want to think about, I don't know how you cannot address. We have become, the medical society has become so segmented in, I specialize in this, I specialize in this. I'm going to throw my brother under the bus, who's an orthopedic surgeon. I say, hey, can you look at my wrist? And he's like, sorry, I don't do wrists. And I'm like, you went to medical school. What the heck? He's like, no, sorry, I don't do wrists. That's a whole nother story. But we are whole people. Right? What happens in the mind translates into the body, right? When you feel depressed, you don't walk around like, right? You're probably more sitting in your chair, or when you're anxious, right? Like maybe that leg is beating, or maybe you're like, right? The emotions show up in our body. We can't separate the two. So if body is included, how can you not involve the body in treatment? It's just not a whole person treatment.
That's a very interesting way, and that really yeah, absolutely.
She brought such a great point, and I think it's important when it comes to just even opening up and discussing mental health and trauma, because I think what's also not discussed enough is like your body's reactions to like when somebody is disclosing to you or when they're communicating to you says everything about how they're gonna take how you're perceiving it. So for example, the first person that I told after what happened to me was my best friend. I mean, we'd been best friends for 15 years at that point. We'd grown up together our entire lives. And it wasn't even necessarily everything that she said. Now, I mean, let me clear that up. She did not say the right things, but the point of it was, it wasn't even that. She didn't even know what to say. So, you know, that part of it, you know, she had never been taught. She had never even known how to respond to anybody that's disclosing that to her. But it was the reaction of her body of just like, I vividly remember her like sitting back, just like, whoa. And same thing happened with my parents, you know, and I can't blame them. They had no idea what I was about to disclose to them, but it was their body's reactions that really like led me to continue what information I was going to like share with them. And I think that as a society, we really need to be cognizant of how we respond to these things, not just with our words, but our reactions and our body movements too, because we feel that. We feel every single movement that, you know, especially when we're disclosing something important as, you know, mental health or a traumatic experience, how that person responds to you is going to shape your entire healing journey after that.
80% of what we say is said through the body.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it. And I think I'm just curious about how, I mean, if you each could sit down with one person maybe who has experienced some form of trauma, what would you say, what would you hope that the one thing that they like take away from a conversation you might have with them is? Would you tell them, talk to a friend, talk to a trusted one, talk to an adult? What would you say to them? Like, what would you want their takeaway to be? I'll start with Adriana. That's okay.
Well, I would definitely hope that they know that they're not alone, one, and then also there are different preferences that people have when it comes to wanting to be supportive. So hopefully that they would know that they have options of how they want to go about it, and they don't need to feel forced of what they would think would be right to do, and they could, you know, just go at their own step.
I'll make it very simple. I believe you. I believe you, and what do you need? That's because, and not in a judgmental way, not in a, do you want to report? Let's go. I'm ready. Like, let's get in the, not in that, in any way, shape, or form. It's, I believe you, and what do you need right now? Because everybody's experiences is different, and everybody's healing journey is different in the aspect of like, you know, whatever happened, maybe you are the only person that they want to talk about it to right now. And you should feel honored that they feel that way, that you are that they are disclosing that information to you. So it's so important to respond that even if you don't know what to say, just say that you believe them and ask them what they need, because you really, that's the most important and the most critical time frame of their life when they first are disclosing to you any traumatic experience that they've been through.
Yeah, they say that oftentimes when people, in terms of trauma specifically, report or tell the first person, the reaction of that person can actually be even more traumatic than the actual trauma itself. So yeah, it's really impactful. How you are taken care of after the event makes or breaks. For me, I often model. I will be, and I say, thank you for trusting me. That was so brave. I am here for you. I believe you. And we are going to get through this together. So again, just this idea of, and oftentimes depending on the situation, I might say, what you experienced, the fear, the shame, that is normal. And I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but your body was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. It was protecting you.
I think that was very impactful. Thank you all for giving your insight on that. I think that in today's world, I mean, like as a teenager, maybe you would agree with me that people today are so afraid to talk about their emotions, their feelings. And I think really making it known that like to have feelings is something that is so normal to people at home, to people in the audience, that feelings are so normal, and talking about them to the right people and getting those right responses can really do a great deal for you. Thank you, all three of you. Just a round of applause for them for everything you guys said. It's really. Oh, yes, please. Keep one. That would be great. Thank you. Our final speaker reminds us that healing isn't just. Oh, you could leave this. That would be great for. Thank you. Our final speaker reminds us that healing isn't just something that we understand with our minds. It is something that we practice every single day. Angela Jost is a certified yoga instructor and wellness advocate who is passionate about helping people reconnect with themselves through movement, breath, and mindfulness. Her approach is grounded in the understanding that caring for our mental health also means caring for our body and our nervous systems. Research continues to show that practices like yoga and intentional breathing can reduce stress, improve emotional regulation, and calm your nervous system, as all while building resilience. These simple yet powerful tools are accessible to nearly everyone and can become a lifelong practice for healing and well-being. Now today, Angela will guide us through the science and the practice of yoga and breath work, demonstrating how intentional movement and mindful breathing can help us find calm, resilience, and create a space for healing, both on and off the mat. Please join me in giving a warm Rise and Thrive welcome to Angela Jost.
Thank you. Would you like to stand there? You know, I'm a mover and a talker.
Oh, then absolutely. I'll
I'm going to use this little headset.
Yeah. If you want to.
Nope, I got it, Carol. Thank you. Absolutely.
Let's see. And we're on. So, I want to start with a question. And I really want you to sit with it for a minute. Have you ever been in a situation, either with a family member, a romantic relationship, or a friendship, where you started to feel invisible? Like what you said didn't matter. Like little by little, that piece of you that you actually liked started getting smaller and smaller and smaller until you didn't know who you were anymore. Maybe some of you are going through something like that right now. That was me. For a very long time, I said yes because it was expected of me. I molded myself into a version that was uncomfortable for me, yet acceptable to my husband. And then one day, I did something radical. I chose myself. And when I finally built up the courage to walk away from the situation that I was living in, I had one of the most traumatic, horrible experiences of my life. And I am standing here today, joyful, fulfilled, and more than I have ever been myself, because I found a way through it. So I'd like to share that with you today, and I'd like to tell you what happened. I don't refer to it as my story. It's not a story. It happened. It was real, and it happened to me. And then I'm going to give you a tool. It's something that I use every single day. You can use it anytime you feel overwhelmed. It's free. Nobody can take it from you. And you can even use it in the middle of the night when your heart is racing and the world just feels like it's a little too much to carry. Okay? So I was married in 1995. And for some of you in this audience, I was about 5 years older than you are right now. I was 22 when I got married. I was married for 23 years. And
somewhere along the line, the man I married changed. It didn't happen overnight. It rarely does, right? It was slow, gradual. I will often describe it as the parable of the frog in the cauldron. That's the story of the frog that gets boiled alive without realizing it, because he's always acclimating to the temperature of the water. That's what it felt like for me. You know, what started out as a comment about me not looking good in a dress turned into me needing his approval for every single thing I wore, even what I wore to the gym, even what I wore to sleep in. What started out as me being able to see my family, who lived several states away, 3 or 4 times a year, turned into, no, we don't need to see them this Christmas. We just saw them 2 years ago. Or, why do you want to go to lunch with your friend? You've got me. You don't need friends. Aren't I enough? That's what it felt like. And anything that I did to bring me joy, he found a way to tarnish. There was one day in 2018 when I was receiving about a 4-hour lecture over eating too many calories that he had set for me that day, and it hit me like a bolt of lightning, right? I realized that the relationship that I was in had somehow turned mentally and emotionally abusive. That the man I married, who was supposed to be my partner, was slowly chipping away at my sense of self piece by piece by piece until I didn't know who I was anymore. Everything that I did that gave me a sense of joy, he found a way to tarnish. If I baked a cake to take into work, it wasn't because I enjoyed baking. It was because I was showing off. When I picked up knitting, I was told I was rude because I wasn't paying attention to the TV show he was watching. Everything that I did that made me feel like me, I had stopped doing years ago. So I want to say something important here, especially for those of you that recognize what I'm describing. It took me years to be able to use that word, abuse. Because abuse isn't always obvious. It isn't always loud. Sometimes abuse is small, and it's quiet, subtle. Sometimes abuse looks like someone controlling your world so slowly that you don't even see that the walls are caving in until you can no longer take a breath. And it took an equally long time for me to build up the courage to decide that I deserved better and then to actually leave him. And so I did. I chose myself, and I started to make a plan to leave. And he found out. And his response to the idea of losing me, his response to my freedom was to take his own life, the lives of our 2 dogs, and to burn our home down. Now, I want to be really clear about why I'm sharing this with you so bluntly today, okay? It is not for shock value. It is certainly not for pity. I am telling you this because it is important for you to understand that I did the right thing by choosing myself and deciding to leave. His choice, his decision to take his own life was not my fault. And for anybody carrying somebody else's pain, please hear me. Their choice is not your fault either. So, I walked away that night with no house, no belongings, no plan. I had no idea who I was outside of the life I'd been conditioned to live in. I had the clothing on my back, and I had the breath in my body, and sometimes even that felt like too much to carry. And here's something really interesting that nobody's going to share with you when you survive something traumatic. Nobody is coming to save you. Yes, they will sit with you. Yes, they will love you, support you, hold space for you. But that decision to come back to yourself, that one belongs to you alone. For me, the path back to myself started on a yoga mat. I had a friend tell me after a really, really rough day, maybe you can check out a yoga studio and see if that helps. And so I did. I decided to give it a try because I needed some place to put my body while my mind was falling apart. And I was looking for something, anything, that would quiet that noise in my head long enough for me to take a breath. And yoga did that for me. Not because it fixed anything, but because it connected me back to my body. And my body, it turns out, still knew how to be okay. I had to learn to listen to it again. So I went back. Every time I felt overwhelmed, every time I was confused, every time I was sad, anxious, I took a yoga class. And little by little, I started to catch my breath. And I thought to myself, if this is helping me so much, maybe it will help other people too. And so I decided to pay it forward, and I became a yoga instructor. And while I was learning how to teach yoga, I learned about the chakras. Chakras are energy centers found along the spine, from the base of your spine all the way to the top of your head. They have been around for thousands of years. They're recognized across several cultures. 7 centers, each one connecting you to a different part of yourself, your safety, your feelings, your power, your love, your voice, your intuition, and your connection to something higher than yourself. And what I discovered was this: when you direct your breath with intention, with focus, to each of those centers one at a time, something in me started to shift. My mind stopped spiraling. That anxiety, that tension that I always seemed to carry in my body started to soften. And I could breathe for the first time, and it felt amazing. And in those small pockets of breath, I started to feel something that I hadn't felt in a really, really long time: gratitude. I know. Ooh, ick, so cliche, right? It's on pillows, it's on murals and kitchen walls, it's on t-shirts. I have a t-shirt, right? But I'm not talking about that kind of gratitude. I am not talking about the Instagram kind, or gratitude for the perfect life that you see on a social media post. I am talking about those small, quiet truths. Sunlight filtering in through a window, right? A particular shade of green on the leaf of an oak tree. The fact that my heart, as shattered as it felt, was still beating. The fact that I could feel. And if I could feel, that meant I could heal. Now, see, gratitude isn't just about appreciating things. It is so much more than that. Gratitude is a practice. Because let's face it, it is so super easy to be grateful when it's 75 degrees outside, you just aced that exam, somebody cute just asked you out on a date. Super easy to be grateful in those moments, right? What about when it won't stop raining for days? What about when you're in a fight with your friends? What about when you're not sure if you're going to pass that class? That's where the practice comes in, yeah? And here's the cool thing about when you practice finding gratitude. It is like finding loose change in a couch. It may seem small, insignificant even, right? A penny here, a nickel there, but guess what? It adds up and it builds. And just like everything else that we do when we practice something, it becomes a habit. It starts to come to you more naturally. Gratitude isn't about pretending everything is fine. It is quite the opposite, actually. It is about finding what is still true and good, even when everything hurts. Now, there is another theme that kind of runs through all of this, and it stems off directly from gratitude, right? And the practice of finding gratitude. And that is how you talk to yourself. Now, this is something I had to completely rebuild in myself because years of mental abuse had done something really subtle for me. And what it did is it handed me a script telling me who I was. And even after he was gone, I could still hear that script in my head. I was still hearing that voice telling me I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't thin enough. I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't worthy. I wasn't worth fighting for. And then, literally a year ago, I happened across, of all things, a TikTok. I love TikTok. And it was a clip of Bruce Lee. And if you don't know who Bruce Lee is, look him up. He is a kung fu master who had a whole series of kung fu movies in the 1970s. And this guy is incredible. And I happened to catch a clip of him giving an interview. And what he said was this: never talk negatively about yourself, even as a joke, because your body can't tell the difference. Let that sink in. Never talk negatively about yourself, even as a joke, because your body can't tell the difference. Every time you talk negatively about yourself, out loud and in your head, your body is receiving that as if it's truth. Your nervous system doesn't fact check your inner dialogue, it simply responds to it. So think about what this means. Every time you say, I suck, I'm fat, I'm ugly, no one likes me, I'm stupid, every time, even when you're with your friends and it's a self-depreciating joke and it's funny and everybody laughs, your body is taking notes. Your nervous system is responding as if that is truth. Your inner dialogue is not neutral. That voice in your head is not neutral. It's either building you up or it's tearing you down. So ask yourself, which voice feels better to listen to? Something else I've also noticed lately, and I've noticed it a lot more lately. I notice it in myself too, and then I have to remind myself that we live in a society where we are conditioned by marketing, by social media, to believe that our worth, our happiness is found somewhere outside of us, right? That if we have the right number of followers, drive the right car, date the right person, have the right body, then we will be okay. Then we will be happy. But here's the thing about looking for happiness outside of yourself. Wayne Dyer is a motivational speaker, and he said this so beautifully. He said, looking for happiness outside of yourself is like losing your keys in the living room and going outside where the light is better in the yard to look for them. Right? The keys aren't outside. They were never outside. That joy, that worth, that sense that you belong in your own life, those things are inside of you. The work isn't about creating better external conditions. The work is going back inside of yourself when it's dark to look, especially when it's dark. Now, after everything I had been through, I had to learn who I actually was. And I had to go inside myself and look with an honest flashlight. And it was really, oh God, it was not easy. But it was so worth it. So I started painting. I started to move my body in ways that felt like me. I said no to the things that drained me, and yes to the things that lit me up, that brought me excitement. And I gave myself permission, maybe for the first time, to be exactly, authentically, unapologetically myself. Oh, and my God, it was so freeing. And if there is anything that I would love for you to take away from what I'm talking about today, it is this. You don't have to wait to have a traumatic experience to be who you want to be. You can be who you want to be right here, right now. It is starting with practicing finding that gratitude, and it builds by how you talk to yourself. So I want to give you a tool. I want to give you something that you can take back from this talk today. It's free. It is something that you can use at 2 o'clock in the morning when you can't fall back asleep. You can use it in a bathroom stall when you're facing a hard day. You can use it on the bus when your anxiety is peaking, okay? It's a breathwork practice that I designed, and it's built around those 7 chakras that I spoke of earlier. When you focus your breath on each of those chakras, it creates kind of an internal compass, a way back to yourself. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what each chakra does, and then I'll talk through the breath work. And then, if you're willing, we'll practice it together. Does that sound okay? Good. Okay, fantastic. So your root chakra, it's right at the base of your spine. It has a color. It's red. This is what grounds us. This is what makes us feel safe. This has an intention. I am. I am powerful. I am enough. Right above that is our sacral chakra. This is in line with our hip bones. This is where our feelings and our compassion lives, right? And our creativity. This color is orange. It also has an intention. I feel my emotions. I give them space, I honor them, I let them go. In the center of our body is our solar plexus. This is our power center. This is our confidence center. And man, I use this one a lot. This one is a bright, glowing yellow. The intention is I do know my own worth. I do see the potential that I have in this life. I do know I can put my mind to anything and know I can accomplish it. Our heart chakra, exactly where you think it would be, our heart. It's green. Can you tell we're making a rainbow? Okay, green, love. This is the source of our love and our compassion. The intention is I love. I love myself. I love others, and I share that love freely, for I know it comes back to me tenfold. Our voice box is our throat chakra. This is blue. This is our authentic voice. This is where we speak our truth. The intention, obviously, I speak. I speak with my authentic voice. I know the worth of my words. I choose them carefully, for I know they carry weight. The space right between our eyebrows here, this is our third eye. This is our intuition. This is our wisdom. This is that sixth sense that we oftentimes will feel and a lot of times disregard. That's here. This allows us to see beyond the appearances. The intention is I see. The color is violet. I see my own potential. I see beyond appearances. And then right at the top of our head is our crown chakra. This is our connection to all things. This is a bright, glowing, iridescent, crystal clear light. Goes all the way up to the heavens. The intention is I know. I know my worth. I know I am powerful. I know the answers that I seek are already within me. So those are the chakras. Here's how the breath work works. It's very specific. It is an inhale through your nose. And by the way, when you inhale, don't inhale up. Inhale in. Think of your skeleton. Think of the skull. There is this huge cavity behind our nose. That's where the air goes in, not up, in. So inhale through your nose, fill up your lungs as much as you can, and then we'll take 2 more sips of air. As you have that air filled, you think and send your focus to each of the chakras that I call out. And then you open mouth exhale, making that exhale twice as long as your inhale. So think of it like this. Think of your belly as a bagpipe, right? You're gonna fill up that bagpipe as much as you can. Take 2 more sips of air, hold that bagpipe full as you send your focus to the chakra I call out. And then exhale, deflate that bag, actively deflate that bag. And when you have no more air able to leave your body, you take another breath. You move on to the next chakra. Sound good? So this will go by pretty quickly. You may feel your heart beating. You may feel a little out of breath. It may feel like it's going to go by really quick or quack, or you didn't have enough time. This is just a demo, okay? Yeah, let's give it a try, shall we? Okay, so sit back, all the way back in your chair. Allow the base of your spine to connect with that seat. And if you feel a little back or a little forward, simply pull your sternum slightly up. This will align your shoulders directly above your hips, okay? Place both feet on the ground so you're nice and grounded, hands on your legs if you'd like. Close your eyes and just start to breathe. Inhale. Exhale. Breathe at your own cadence, your own rhythm, and start to notice. Notice how your feet connect you to the earth. Notice the rise and fall of your chest. Notice the weight of your hands on your thighs. Let's take one more breath, and then we will begin. Breathe in. Breathe out. Let's begin. Take a deep breath in, fill in that bagpipe, fill it, full, 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 full. Take a sip, sip, hold that bagpipe full. Root chakra, I am enough, I am powerful. Exhale. Deflate that bag. Inhale. Sip, sip, hold. Sacral chakra above your hip bones. I feel my emotions. I give them space, I honor them, I let them go. Exhale. Deflate that bag. Inhale. Sip, sip, hold. Solar plexus, center of the body, yellow. I do know my own worth. I do know I have a purpose on this planet. I do know I will go far in life. Exhale. Inhale. Sip, Sip, hold. Heart chakra, I love myself, I love others, and I share that love freely, for I know it comes back to me tenfold. Exhale. Inhale. Sip, sip, hold. Throat chakra, I speak my truth. I use my authentic voice and I use my words wisely, for I know they carry weight. Exhale. Breathe in. Sip, sip, hold. Third eye, I see my own potential. I see my worth. I see beyond appearances. Exhale. One more. Inhale. Sip, sip, hold. Crown chakra, I know there is something greater than myself. I know my own worth. I know the answers I seek are already inside of me. Exhale. Just take a breath in. Take a breath out. Start to find your own cadence. Breathe in. Breathe out. Start to notice your breath. Start to notice how you feel in your body. Take 2 more breaths, and when you are ready, open your eyes. How do you feel? What do you notice about yourself? Do you notice maybe your heart beating? Do you notice that you're just a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more zen? Yeah. So the cool thing about this practice is that you can design this for anything that you need. So for instance, sometimes I'll go through all the chakras and it'll be really kind of quick, just like what we did today. It takes about 3 minutes. Sometimes though, if I know I'm facing a hard conversation, I'll just do it on the throat chakra. Or like today, this is the first time I've ever spoken in front of an audience. High school, I really focused on my confidence center today. But you can use this however you need it for yourself in that moment. I made handouts. They are here for you to take with you today. And I hope that you find a way to use them. And by the way, what you just did, that's not small. That took some courage to be able to turn in towards yourself, not look around for validation, not worrying about whether or not you're looking silly in front of your friends, but really, truly turning in towards yourself and choosing to trust yourself first. That takes guts. So I survived something in 2018 that I couldn't have imagined going through. I lost my house. I lost my sense of safety. I lost the life I knew. And I carried in me for a long time guilt and confusion and also shame, wondering if I could or should have done something differently. Here's what I know now. I did the right thing by choosing myself. And if there is anyone going through something painful right now, something that is making you feel smaller, insignificant, worthless, please hear me. Choosing yourself is not selfish. That light, that love, that sense of worth that you are looking for is not somewhere out there. It is inside of you, right here, right now. It is in the breath you just took, and it's in the piece of you that still knows your own worth, even when somebody tries to convince you otherwise. Your light did not dim. It did not go out. It went deeper. And now you know how to find it. 7 breaths, 7 centers. 1 extraordinary, unbreakable you. Thank you.
we're missing one Angela today, but I'm sure that Angela's watching right now, and I'm sure she was so grateful. I think maybe you almost pulled up a little bit more of you to be there for her. Thank you.
I channeled Angela.
Well, I'm glad you did. Thank you for all of you being here today. I just got a notice that we have over 30 organizations that are watching online right now, and that is absolutely incredible. That is more than we definitely thought we could have. I'm so grateful to everybody online, everybody that came in person to visit today, to talk today. So just thank you all for being here. To every teen, parent, educator, clinician, advocate, and community member that joining us in person or online, thank you so much for choosing to be a part of this movement. Today you've heard stories of courage. You've learned about the science of healing. You've seen that recovery isn't just possible, that it's real. Healing doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means rediscovering that our experiences don't have to define us. We each have the capacity to rise, to grow, and to thrive. As you leave today, I hope you'll remember one thing, is that you never know what someone else is carrying. Your kindness, your willingness to listen, as we heard today, and your courage to reach out may even change or even save a life. This summit would not have been possible without the incredible speakers who generously shared their experiences and their expertise with their hearts. Our amazing volunteers and teen interns, some of which who could not be here today, and our partners and sponsors, and every single one of you for believing that mental health matters. I would like to give a personal thank you to the National Alliance on Mental Health and Mental Health Illinois of America for partnering with us, and thank you all online and in person for coming. We appreciate you dearly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's what I mean.